Before we jump into the episode today, I want to share something with you from my heart. First of all, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really can't tell you how much your support means to me. We've been doing the podcast now for almost 4 years. I can't even believe it. And I'm so grateful for each and every single one of you that listens, shares an episode with your friends, sends me a DM or a text message letting me know how an episode resonated with you or any aha moments. Seriously, I couldn't be more grateful to be able to create this podcast. It has been such a blessing in my life, and I love hearing the ways it's been able to provide value in yours as well. One thing you might not know is how much work it takes to be consistent with a podcast. In fact, did you know that the majority of podcasts don't make it past episode number 10? And we are well beyond that. And it's just a lot thinking of the episodes, recording them, editing them, managing the guests, making sure that everything runs smoothly and gets uploaded consistently and regularly. And so that's why I have created an amazing opportunity for you to support the podcast monetarily. And in exchange for that, you will get exclusive premium subscriber content. So for as little as $3 a month, you can become a premium subscriber of the podcast. And every month I will upload new voice-guided workouts and breathwork meditation audio for you. So that way you can work out with me, coaching you in your ears. You can also take a moment to reduce your stress and relax and come down and ground down with one of my breathwork audios. So if that is on your heart to support the podcast for as little as $3 a month to become a premium podcast subscriber, I can't tell you how much that means to me and the growth of this podcast. I appreciate you. If you're interested, click the link in the description, become a premium podcast subscriber, new content every month, and while supplies last, I'll send you an exclusive podcast coffee mug so you can have your self-love and sweat coffee every morning. I appreciate you. Now let's get into the show. Welcome to Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast, the place where you'll get inspired to live your life unapologetically, embrace your perfect imperfections, break down barriers, and do what sets your soul on fire. I'm your host, Lunden Souza. Hey, have you grabbed your free Self-Love and Sweat monthly calendar yet? This calendar is so amazing. It comes right in your inbox every single month to help you have a little nugget of wisdom, a sweaty workout, a mindset activity, just a little something to help keep you focused and motivated and keep that momentum towards your goals. So every day when you get this calendar, you'll see a link that you can click that will lead to a podcast episode or a workout or something that will be very powerful and quick to read. And then you'll also see on the top left corner of every single day, there's a little checkbox in the calendar. And what that is that's for your one thing. You can choose one thing every month, or it can be the same, something that you want to implement, and make this something that you can easily implement, like daily meditation or getting a certain amount of steps or water, for example, and staying hydrated, and even taking your supplements. This can be something if you want to get more regular doing a particular habit and routine, you can choose what that checkbox means. So if you want your Self-Love and Sweat free monthly calendar delivered right to your inbox every month on the first of the month, go to lifelikelunden.com/calendar, fill out the form really quickly, and you will have your calendar in your inbox within a few short minutes. That's lifelikelunden, lifelikelunden.com/calendar. Go get yours for free and enjoy this episode. Happy today. Welcome back to the podcast. This is the last podcast episode of 2023. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all of you who are new, who have been listening to the podcast for years. Next March, 2024, will be 4 years of doing the podcast because we started in March of 2020. And I say we because, I couldn't continue to do this without you guys listening, sharing the podcast with your friends, reaching out via DMs or email and telling me what podcast episodes resonate with you, sharing ideas for what you want to hear next. I just feel so grateful to be able to do what I love. So thank you so much. And in this episode, I've written down here in my notebook, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6/7, because the last one is from 2 people, but learnings from guests that we've had on the podcast. I feel like I've met some of the most incredible humans on the planet through this podcast. And some of them I know and invite them on the podcast, but some of them I would have never known unless they reached out to me or their team reached out to me in order to be a guest on my show. And so I'm super picky with my guests. I stalk them on Instagram. I look at their videos. I listen to other podcasts that they've been on. Because I like people who want to come on and share stories and not just be all about products or their services. Sometimes I get, and no judgment, but sometimes I get guests where they reach out and it's all about wanting to promote just a book or just talk about a product. And I don't mind if there's, products or books or things associated with a person. I mean, I do too. When I'm a guest on a podcast, I always want them to come over to my podcast, get my free Self-Love and Sweat monthly calendar, do one-on-one coaching with me and things like that. But I just try to sniff out if that's the main motive or not. So I was reflecting after a meditation last week, and I just started writing down a lot of things that I've learned from some of the amazing guests that we've had on this show. And so I thought maybe you guys would want to hear that and I could share them with you today. So I'm going to jump right into these learnings, and I'll link all of these episodes in the show notes. I'll also tell you what episode number they are so that you can go back and listen to them if you want to. And maybe you've already listened to some of these episodes. So this will be kind of like a recap. Maybe you can also let me know if there was anything I missed, right? If there's something that you learned from an episode that I didn't mention or from a guest that I didn't mention, by all means, call me out and tell me, send me a DM. Okay, so the first one is from episode 124 with Gary Goldstein. Gary Goldstein has become a dear friend of mine. We've spent some time together over this year, getting to know one another. He's such an amazing, kind, down-to-earth, humble human. He's the producer of Pretty Woman, Mothman Prophecies, and just very successful in the Hollywood space. And I had him on episode 124. And the thing that really inspired me about mine and Gary's conversation was he moved to LA and didn't know anything about making movies. He didn't know the terminology. I don't even know the terminology to say what he didn't know, but I remember that he shared with me, he didn't know all the different terminologies when it came to making movies, right? Whether it's the people involved in making movies or the processes involved in making movies. He just knew that he wanted to tell stories and that he wanted to be a creative and he wanted to own his time. And he just had this passion. And so what he did was first of all, he noticed that there was a sports club by his house where people were playing tennis during the week on a Tuesday, 2:00, just living the dream, owning their own time. And he was like, who are those people? Those must be my friends waiting to meet me. So he would go there and he would play tennis. And after each tennis match, he would ask the person hey, what do you do? And if they were in a space of interest for him where he wanted to learn, he would ask them hey, will you be my 5-minute mentor? And if they agreed, which he said most of them did, he would ask them in 5 minutes, just some questions about their expertise, ways that he could grow and learn. And I just thought that was so beautiful because sometimes we don't know what we don't know, in a sense that well, maybe that's not the way that I want to say it. Sometimes we just don't know. And it's up to us to go and figure it out, right? There was probably things, or maybe I said that right. There's probably things he didn't know when he had those questions and was talking to these people. But just because we don't know doesn't mean we can't figure it out. And just because we don't know all of the things doesn't mean that we can't learn it one day or we can't get to that point. You might have a dream of, I don't know, working online or, being a movie producer like he is, or maybe, getting your doctorate degree and you don't have the money yet and you're not really sure. just because you don't have the resources and the knowledge available to you right in this moment doesn't mean it's not possible to go out and get it. And I loved his tenacious spirit and his curious spirit in the way that he did that, and he put himself out there, right? People could have said no, like, no, I don't have 5 minutes. Sorry. Bye, Gary. We're done playing tennis. Don't bother me. But he said most people were really kind and really open. And that inspired me too, to think about who I could ask for help and who I could reach out to in anything, right? Like when it comes to our career, when it comes to maybe relationship advice or finances or whatever, I've really gone out this year and asked a lot of my friends, or my friends especially who are older than me, for advice, for input. And it's been so amazing to see the outpour of giving when we just ask, hey, can I ask you some questions? Give me 5 minutes. You have 3 minutes. And he was just always prepared with some questions that he wanted to ask and getting that information. And so that's what I learned from Gary Goldstein in episode 124. The next learning comes from episode 146 with Dr. Tanya Stephenson. This one was all about rewriting your identity. And the thing that spoke to me the most about our conversation was she tells a story about how she had this awareness that she was giving her partner the silent treatment. Something happened where they had guests over. I think, I can't remember specifically what the scenario was, but she noticed that she was giving her partner the silent treatment. And when she stopped and thought about it, she was like, oh, that was learned because my mom used to give my dad the silent treatment. And I just think that the awareness of patterns passed on when it comes to communication, when it comes to connection, is so, so, so powerful. And she really pointed that out, was open and vulnerable and spot on, in my opinion, because sometimes we are so unconscious in our communication patterns, and we just think that like people deserve, in her case, the silent treatment when they, do something wrong or they bother us or whatever. But she even said herself, she's like, it's so weird because while I was giving my partner the silent treatment, that's not the person that I am. Like, I want connection. I want deep communication. I want to be able to talk about the hard thing. Yet I was doing something that was contrary to what I wanted until I had the awareness about it. And so I really loved having her as a guest. In fact, I want to have her back. She's so awesome. I loved her. She's from Australia. And at the time that we recorded the episode, it was like 2:00 in the morning, Australia time, because when she booked on my calendar, I didn't have, I have certain windows of times when I record podcasts, but it was funny. I was like, girl, we could have, you should have written me and I could have, rearranged some things so that you wouldn't have to be up in the middle of the night. But anyway, she did. And I'm so grateful for Dr. Tanya Stephenson for doing that, and for the awareness patterns that she was aware of. And then she was gracious enough to share on the podcast. I always love when people are open and real and raw and vulnerable. And I understand it's not easy. I can remember times in my life where I didn't share a lot of the shit that was going on in my life. And now I feel like I don't know how to not share the shit. So I appreciate, I just appreciate those who come on and are just like open books. That was learning number 2. Learning number 3 comes from episode 140 with Jen Drummond. She's the woman who I talked to that has 7 kids, and she climbed 7 of the second highest summits in 7 continents. And honestly, that conversation blew my mind. In fact, she just came out with a new book called Break Proof. Sorry, I just had to look back on my bookshelf. Break Proof is the name of her book, and I'll link it in the show notes as well. Just highlighting 7 lessons from 7 summits. And I'm like, I think my learning from her, or I know my learning from her is, seriously, we can do whatever the fuck we put our mind to. Like, we can do whatever we put our mind to. This woman is just like, when I talk to her, you think that, of course she has these supernatural capabilities and all these things. But when I talk to her on the podcast, like, she's just like a normal person, right? Like a normal person, 7 kids, doing all the things, training for her summits and all the stuff. And I just felt so inspired by her because she had a very bad accident where she should have died. Like, if you look at what happened to her. She shouldn't be here anymore, but she was, and she is. And so she decided to, take that pain, take that tragedy and turn it into her mission and turn it into her purpose. And so sometimes I think about her and I think about other moms in general. And I'll say to myself, Lunden, party of one, because I'm just myself, right? Like I don't have kids. I live alone. Like I do my thing. And sometimes things are hard. And then I think of the moms out there who have all these kids and all these to-dos. And I just am so in awe of mothers, including my own, when I think about the child I was. Not that I was like bad. I was just like a lot. Like I was a lot. I was a lot to handle, but I love it. I love that about the way, I just love that about the way she shared that. And just reminding us that it doesn't matter if you're a mom, how old you are, if you had a near-death experience, like you can always turn that mess into your message. And so I haven't yet dove into her book, Break Proof, yet, but I'm so excited to read it. She sent me over a signed copy, which I'm super excited about. Thank you, Jen. That was so kind. And I can't wait to dive in and share probably some learnings with you guys from that book, because I just feel like, and then she's so funny because she goes, I'm a woman and I have long hair and I was going to be in these summits like freezing cold wet. So I requested a blow dryer. So she gets a blow dryer, but then of course they don't have like plugs. So she had to get like a solar plug. So she had to be like blow drying her hair out in the open because the plug needed solar to, the sun to be out. So and I just have this vision of her like on the side of the mountain in all of her gear with her solar plug, like blow drying her hair, because it wasn't about vanity. Like she wasn't trying to give herself like this glam blowout. She was just trying to, keep herself safe and just like, no, I need a blow dryer because it's going to be cold and my hair's going to get wet. And then she also talked about how other women were like, thank you so much, because you did that. We feel like we have permission to ask for some of the things that we need, because I guess the people around her and I guess mountain climbers in general are not always bringing blow dryers with them, but she needed it and she asked for what she needed. And then in turn, it was like an unofficial permission slip for other people that saw that to ask for what they need. And I thought that was really beautiful. Hey, really quick, I want to interrupt the podcast for just a minute to tell you about one of my favorite supplements for hair, skin, nails, digestive, and gut health. And that is Snap Supplements Super Greens with collagen. Now, if you're following me on social media, you've probably seen me post about this a bunch, because honestly, this product tastes amazing and it's jam-packed with nutrients, like I said, to support healthy hair, skin, and nails. It helps support detoxification, a healthy immune system, and there's even probiotics in there for a healthy gut. It's non-GMO, no sugar added, soy-free, grass-fed collagen, and every scoop is going to give you 7 grams of protein. And this is why I love it, because it's not like a protein shake. It's just a scoop of powder. It tastes amazing. I put it in water, or if I want more hydration, I'll put it in coconut water and mix it up. And it's like having a nice, refreshing beverage that's packed with a bunch of super greens and protein. So what I'm super excited about is that for listening to the podcast, you'll get this discount here, nowhere else, but for listening to the podcast. You can save 25% off on all your Snap supplement purchases, including the Super Greens with collagen. And you do that by using code Lunden25 at checkout. That's LUNDEN 25. LUNDEN 25 to get 25% off at checkout. You can shop on snapsupplements.com, or you can shop on my website, lifelikelunden.com/supplements. And you'll see there's already an additional 10% taken off. But you, because you're a podcast listener, you're going to get 25% off when you use the code Lunden25 at checkout. LUNDEN 25 at checkout to get your Snap Supplements, Super Greens, and collagen, and all your Snap supplements for 25% off. Now, let's get back to the show. Okay, the next learning comes from episode 127 with Megan Gallagher. She is such a wonderful person. I love Megan. In fact, we just recorded another episode for the podcast/radio show, because now Self Love and Sweat, the podcast, is available on Dash Radio. It hasn't aired yet, but it will be soon. It'll be on Dash Radio on the Expansion channel. And so we just recorded another episode, and I told her, I was like, I want you back like every other month. I love talking with her. She's such a gem, and she is a TEDx speaker and author, and she's in her 20s, and she's an advocate for mental health in the public school system, which I just am like, I love that. I love it so much. And one of the things that we talked about that I just thought was really profound and stood out to me was she's really on a mission to get courses like breath work, meditation, emotional intelligence, deciphering our feelings, like getting classes taught in schools on those topics. I asked her, what would be like your ideal day in school? And she's like, I think we should start the day with like breath work and meditation and setting intentions. She also mentioned, having a class on helping you understand your intuition, which I thought was beautiful. And I just really admire her because she had her like aha moment that really helped her pivot when she was 16 years old in school. In the bathroom, I believe she was having like a panic attack and just anxiety, and was just like, I don't feel good and I don't want to feel this way. And I think it took me probably until I was like 29 or 30 to really demand that for myself and to be like, no, I want to feel better. And maybe it was a little bit sooner because like with my hormone issues and a lot of that, I was about 23, 24 when I started going in a more holistic direction, started taking care of, just myself even more. But that moment when I really took a stand for myself and I really felt like all the culmination of everything, it was like 29, 30, because that's when it really wasn't like a vanity thing. When I first started my hormone healing journey, it kind of was because I had hormonal cystic acne all over my face. And so it really was like a outside appearance type of thing. But it wasn't until I was, 28, 29, 30, when I really started understanding the importance and understanding the value of knowing my emotions and being okay to ask for help and, understanding the connection between the emotional and the physical. And so I loved what I learned from her because I think she's spot on. And I have a niece now who's 5 where I'm like, yes, things like trusting your intuition, meditation, breath work, all those things are things that I love exploring with her and just kind of doing with her. Another thing that she said, not on that episode, but on the episode that we recorded for the second one. So actually at the time of this podcast airing, that episode's not out yet, but it'll be out in January. So if you're listening to this and it's later on in 2024, you might be able to catch that episode with Megan Gallagher. But one of the things that she said, and I don't think this was like her particular quote, but she brought it to the episode, was, your triggers are your responsibility. And I thought that was really, really powerful because sometimes we get triggered by other people and we think it's up to them to fix themselves in order to be better so that they don't trigger us. But really, it's up to us to, ask ourselves, okay, why am I triggered by this? What part of me is being, affected by this and triggered and upset and annoyed by this? And I love that. And I think that also goes the other way where we say like, your triggers are your responsibility. Now, I don't think you should go out and say that to people, but if we notice that we're shining and we're doing our best and we're up leveling, other people are definitely going to be triggered by that. And that's not up to us to dim our light and to play small. And I'm speaking to myself here because one of the things that I really am working on releasing is that playing small, that dimming my light to make other people comfortable. And when she said that, other people's triggers or your triggers are your responsibility, my triggers are my responsibility, that really like prompted me to turn my light up even brighter and be like, wait, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks about what I'm doing. If they're triggered, that's up to them to figure out why. Now, I'm not going around pressing people's buttons on purpose. Like if I know that someone's triggered by something, I'm not going to purposely go and like push that button multiple times just to trigger the person. Like that's jacked up, but I'm not going to play small so that others can feel comfortable. And that was number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Learning number 5 comes from episode number 143 with Lyndsay Lee, showing up messy and authentically online. I met Lyndsay through our NABA community, which is the company I created my course with. and the company that I we're growing a big community in. So you'll hear a lot about NABA moving forward. First of all, I freaking love Lyndsay. Same thing like Megan and Tanya. Like I just could have them back on the show over and over and over again. In fact, I told Lyndsay, I was like, do you want to be a regular on my podcast? Because I would love to just like shoot the shit with you and talk. She's so wonderful. She's super funny. Her and I play meme ping pong all the time in the DMs because she's super hilarious and we have a similar sense of humor. And so what I learned from her was kind of her tagline. And her and I talked a lot about death on the podcast because we're both very motivated by death, by like our mortality. We're kind of like, wait, like we don't have forever here and we want to make an impact and we're just not going to sit here and twiddle our thumbs. We want to go out in the world and we want to like make shit happen. And her kind of mantra or theme that she said, like her mission statement or whatever she called it, is have fun, do good, don't die boring. And I loved that. Have fun, do good, don't die boring. And it reflects her so much. If you know Lyndsay, you know that statement is like spot on. And if you don't, once you get to know her authentic self through following her online, you'll see that that's really, kind of what she's all about. And her and I really resonated on that because we were just like, no, we want people to like feel impacted by us. We want to have fun on our journey. We don't want to just stay small and do the status quo because society and others say we should do it or we're supposed to do it. Like hell's nah. Like we want to go out and live life full out. And I really learned that from her and I just love her. So you'll see a lot more of her on the podcast in 2024. Yeah, she's wonderful. And then the last learning number 6, like I said, 6/7 comes from 2 episodes. And I actually did one episode, one of my quick mindset reset episodes. I did one of them, dedicated specifically to this topic, but I want to say it here again because I just think it's so powerful. This comes from episode 137 on leadership with Kevin Suber and episode 132 about, I can't remember the name of the episode, but it was like getting out of the hustle culture with Megan Arneson. And I actually met Kevin Suber and Megan Arneson as well through the NABA community. And the reason why both of their episodes stood out to me and why I think both of what they shared is so important and so profound in both of their models of the world is they both said the same thing on the podcast when I was talking with them, but they meant it in different ways. So Kevin, when he was on the podcast, he was like, I remember, it wasn't a matter of if I was going to go to college, but when. So for him, it was like he was the first person in his family line to go to college. It wasn't a matter of maybe or if, but when. And he didn't know how he was going to make it happen or what it was going to look like, but he just knew that there would be a time when he would go to college. And then for Megan, she was in a family where everybody went to college. It was just expected that you go to college and you do that. It was just like, that's what you do next. That's what you're supposed to do next. And for her, it was like, it wasn't a matter of if I was going to go to college, but when. And so for her, it was kind of like putting her in this box of doing everything that everybody else in her family had always done. And so that last learning is just a reminder that everybody's model of the world is different. And that's cool, right? Like as long as it's empowering to both of them and it helps stir some shit up in them to go out and make a difference and get some momentum and go out and do good and go out and execute their purpose, like more power to them, right? So that really stood out to me. And I think I interviewed Megan first and then Kevin second. And I remember in the second interview, I can't remember which order, but I think it was that way. In that second interview, as soon as they said it, I remembered. I was like, oh, that's exactly like Megan and Kevin said the exact same thing, but with different tonalities, different models of the world, and different meanings for them personally. But what I love about both of them is that they chose to turn that into momentum and chose to turn that into their message. And that was really, really so amazing. So yeah, that's what I learned in 2023. Like, I guess I learned so much more, but these were just like some powerful interviews off the top of my head from this year that I just really, really, really loved. And I think you'll love too. And if you have any other learnings that you received from any of the episodes, just like send me a DM, send me an email. If you're on my email list, you can just hit reply to any of the emails that I send out. And those emails go directly to me. And you can let me know, hey, Lunden, in your learnings of 2023, you didn't mention this episode. This episode really changed me. I would love to hear it. Or you can send me a DM on Instagram at LifeLikeLunden. And just, let me know. Let's have a chat. Let's communicate about this episode and what you might have learned and how you might have grown through any of the episodes on the podcast. These ones were all guests that I've had, so I didn't choose any solo episodes to highlight. While I do learn a lot from these episodes that I do alone, like I don't ever script them. I do write down some bullet points, but sometimes when I go back and watch them later and I edit the episodes, I'm kind of like, oh, good job, self. I learned a lot from you. But these ones, like I said, in particular, are learnings that I had from some of the awesome guests. So thanks again, you all, for listening, for being amazing for almost 4 years of Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast. And cheers to all of these learnings, plus many more, and many more to come in 2024. And I did not plan that. That was not a planned rhyme. You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast. Hey, do me a favor. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, give us a review. This really helps a lot. And share this with a friend. I'm only one person, and with your help, we can really spread the message of self-love and sweat and change more lives all around the world. I'm Lunden Souza, reminding you that you deserve a life full of passion, presence, and purpose, fueled by self-love and sweat. This podcast is a Hit Spot Austria production.